But first, a manhunt is still underway in South Africa as police investigate the killing of an imam who was gunned down in the coastal city of Kibeha. Muhsin Hendrick was both a religious leader and openly gay, an identity that brought great comfort to many who felt that there was no place for them in traditional interpretations of their faith, but that also made him a target for others. Police have so far stopped short of calling his killing a hate crime, but his loss will be deeply felt. I'm joined now by Ismail Bahati, who is the director of Pema, an organization that works with marginalized communities in the region and who knew Muhsin well. Ismail, thanks so much for making the time to speak to me tonight. So first of all, tell us a bit about what Muhsin's work meant to those with whom he interacted.
Thank you very much. Muhsin Hendrick was a compassionate religious leader, and he taught a lot about compassion, Islam that is compassion, Islam that is inclusive. And mostly one of the outstanding statement that Muhsin has always done was the need, he said that the need to be authentic surpasses the fear of death. And this meant that he really encouraged us to study Islam, to interrogate scriptures and question what we hear the scholars or the leaders, the spiritual leaders tell to us. He was fearless. He was a person that was a role model for queer persons who are struggling with faith and reconciling faith and their sexuality, the two identities that we consider that are very necessary for any human. So Imam Muhsin was really on forefront and ensuring that the queer Muslims are able to walk the journey of self-acceptance, but also to be feeling welcome and fitting into the Islamic spaces that are available.
So it seems like he really connected with a lot of people who didn't have many others to turn to when they were trying to work out where they sat with their faith, with themselves. But it also meant that he attracted a lot of attention, not necessarily positive. Now, how did that play out in the South African context? Because on one hand, you know, South Africa was if I understand it, the first country in the world to make it a criminal to discriminate against somebody for their sexual orientation. But did that translate into the environment and context within which Muhsin did his work? Did he ever feel unsafe?
Interestingly, this was also my thought when I met Imam Muhsin because of his courageous and outlook. But having discussions close with him and also sharing my life being threatened as in terms of speaking about Islam and sexuality, he also reflected to me that his life has always been on the forefront and therefore has been in danger. He had received several threats on his life. And one time he mentioned to me that he even changes houses after 1 year to at least feel that he is safe from the attackers. He also shared with me the different text messages and some calls that he usually receives from other religious leaders who view his opinion as not in line with the mainstream Islam, and therefore his life generally, as per to what I know from him, was always a life full of danger in terms of the way that he was, the way he believed, and always not shying away from the two identities, which are Islam and being an openly gay imam.
So what happens now, Ismail? I mean, you've just mentioned that intersection. What happens for those to whom he offered or created an ecosystem within which they could worship but also find comfort in each other? Does that continue, or is that now threatened with his loss?
What Imam Muhsin did was to ensure that the people that have undergone through his hands are able to run on their own. For example, I am an example of the work that he did, working away from him in Kenya, only with him coming to visit once in a while. And therefore, he empowered us. He made sure that we are people that can stand on ourselves. We are able to be vocal and hold dialogues in our own spaces. So even in as much as we at a loss and we are mourning the loss of our Imam, we are still able to carry on with the work that he was doing. The only
Ishmael?
challenge is that not as brave enough as he was to be able to carry on the work exactly as he did.
Ishmael Bahati, Executive Director of Pema, thank you so much for making the time to speak to us at a time that I understand to be very difficult for those who knew Muhsin Hendricks. Well, in other news, in Eastern DR Congo on Monday, a day after M23